The following podcast contains spoilers and words that my mother would prefer I did not say. We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello everybody and welcome to We Watched a Thing for a massive double feature. How you doing, Dave?
I'm very good, my friend. How are you?
Good, mate. I'm
Man
excellent.
of pleasure.
Yes, that's right. Hanging around. My head's getting cold because I've shaved it down. I'm bald like you now, mate. But we had a big week of movies this week, didn't we?
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I almost
What a
don't
great
know where
time to be going to the cinema.
Which one should we start with?
The serious one. So we'll start with Barbie.
I like it. All right. Barbie. Because, of course, we're doing the Barbenheimer, as the entire rest of the world is. Have you seen the box office numbers from this week?
It's ridiculous.
This is the biggest this is the biggest weekend at the box office since Endgame came out.
Yeah, I have not seen a cinema so packed since, not just before COVID, but well before COVID.
Yeah.
Both films.
Both of these films.
Both of them packed.
Yep. Yes. All right. Well, let's get into Barbie then. Barbie is a 2023 American fantasy comedy film directed by Greta Gerwig and written by Gerwig and her husband, Noah Baumbach. Based on the Barbie fashion dolls by Mattel, it's the first live-action Barbie film after numerous attempts, and the film stars Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, America Ferrera, Kate McKinnon, Issa Rae, Rhea Perlman, and Will Ferrell. And what is it about, Dave?
It's about dolls. It's about dolls who reside in a fantasy world that's adjacent to ours, I guess.
Yep.
And we see through the eyes of stereotypical Barbie, who I guess is sort of the first non-denominational, non-career specific Barbie.
Yeah. They describe it as the Barbie that you think of when you think of a Barbie.
Yes, exactly.
And we are, of course, talking about barbecues.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, Barbieland is very much barbecues galore. And she out of nowhere undergoes a bit of an existential crisis and starts wondering about her place in the world and is life all it can be, etc., and as a result needs to go and visit the real world and find her user. It's very like Tron in this sense. She has to go and find her user, work out why her user is so sad and depressed, and fix that so that she can go back to being happy all the time and not poison the well that is Barbieland with her onerous thinking.
Yep. All right, well, let's get straight into it then. This was a massively anticipated film for me. I love and adore Greta Gerwig. I love and adore Noah Baumbach. I've loved both of them for as long as, back in the old Mumblecore film days, which I'm a massive fan of, that kind of indie underground filmmaking that they kind of grew up in. Ryan Gosling, Margot Robbie, like the casting seemed perfect. Everything about this seemed like it was going to be perfect, and yet I kind of had no idea what I was expecting, which I don't think anybody really did. I don't think anybody could have anticipated exactly what this film was.
I think I was as excited for it as one can be for a Barbie film.
Yeah.
I'm kind of long since over this. Oh, there's a successful IP anywhere in the world of entertainment, be it board games or anything. We must make a feature film on it. Fucking Battleship and
you know what? You give me a Battleship film made by Greta Gerwig. I'm going to go see that. Like that's what really got me interested, and I think that's where the population
I guess that's what I'm saying. I was as excited for the concept of a Barbie film as I could be. Yeah. When I knew it was. As it finally came to be after numerous false starts, being written by Gerwig and Baumbach and Greta Gerwig directing. I thought, if anyone's got a chance of making this not horrendously awful, it's probably them. I didn't know how they were going to not make it horrendously awful, but I had more faith than I would have had anyone else been at the helm.
Yeah, I think this is... Let's just dive right into it then. I think this is as close as you can get to an art house film when you're dealing with a massive IP that you are. Like this is I don't know how to describe it, but it's a bizarre film. I think it's hysterically funny. I loved every minute of this film. Where are you on it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it immensely. It's very sneakily making you think about shit without you expecting it. The writing, I think, is very clever.
I agree. And it's laugh a minute. I laughed harder in this film than I have in most comedies for the past, 10 years. I can't remember the last time I laughed this hard in a cinema.
There's some very, very funny stuff. There are some things that I had problems with that I didn't like. But by and large, I laughed, as you say, all the way through. There's just as many laughs at the end as there are at the beginning. It's consistent all the way through.
Yeah.
I think the performances are mostly very, very good. There were cast members in there I didn't expect. It's fucking cameo city when you start. It's almost like across the Spider-Verse. You kind of need to go through on freeze frame and go, oh, there's that and that and that and that.
Yeah. And I know that you have children as well. I don't know if your kids ever played with Barbies, but I've got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old. So the 9-year-old's kind of growing out of it, but she still plays with her sister. And so it was really funny how many Barbies pop up. It's like, oh, we have that one. Yeah, we've got that.
See, I didn't have any of that. I think, I'm sure the girls were bought Barbies by relatives at some point when they were younger, but they were never sort of prized possessions or played with to any huge degree.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated over the credits being shown just how faithful they were to all of the and even the weirdest ones. It's got kind of
growing up Skipper where you pull her arm and her tits grow. What were you thinking, Mattel? I've been seeing on TikTok lately, there's this woman who's doing this series of kind of, the weirdest Barbies that were ever released. And some of them you're like, how did that get out there? And most of them were discontinued crazy quick. It's bizarre.
Oh, it's so... And it's like with the Spider-Verse films or with... I don't know, the Suicide Squad, or even going back to things like Mystery Men, stuff that you sort of think, that's just ridiculous, and then later find out, oh no, that's comic accurate, or that actually was a thing.
Yeah. Let's start with the cast then, because you did mention that there were some that you thought were maybe a little weak. I mean,
one, I'll say.
Okay.
There's a side plot which I could have done without. I don't think it added anything. Is it Will Ferrell? Of course it's Will Ferrell.
No, I agree. I've never liked Will Ferrell.
Him in about 20 years in anything. He's always irritating. He seems a nice guy in interviews.
Yeah.
But I'm so over the Will Ferrell shtick. I put, that's in a bucket with Sandler as far as I'm concerned. Now, it's a one-note thing. It's that he does, and I'm over it. I'm so sick of it.
Yeah.
He was toned down a bit in this, and there were moments that he was bearable or even funny, but by and large, they could have excised that entire Mattel board for me from the film.
That is the one weak point of the film for me, is that, which it's not even really, like, you call it a side plot, but it's it doesn't actually have any effect on the plot at all. It could have been excised completely and it would have changed nothing. It's kind of almost there only to give us America Ferrera and her character as an in, but I feel like there might have been a neater way to do that. You could have had her working at Mattel. You didn't need the board and him as the CEO. And it does lead to some very funny lines. Like when Barbie first arrives and she's asking to speak to the CEO and he's like, that's me. And, that other guy is like, I'm a man without any power or something. Does that make me a woman? Like it did lead to some pretty funny moments in that boardroom. But I agree, I could have done without that storyline entirely, and I've never been a big Will Ferrell fan. No. I think I liked having Rhea Perlman in there as Ruth Handler. Yeah. The actual creator, and she's nice. She's such an iconic figure in business as a woman president of a major company in I think probably the 40s or whatever she would have started. She was president of Mattel for like 30 years or something. Yeah. There was a nice inclusion having her there as a out of respect for who she was. I liked that, but didn't need Ferrell. I agree. I liked the Ruth Handler inclusion a lot. I cannot believe that the script for this movie got approved, though. Like, even Ruth Handler, the amount of kind of little jokes she makes about the IRS and stuff. And it's like, well, fuck, how did Mattel approve this? Like, how did Mattel read Will Ferrell's lines and go, yeah, you know what, go for it? And I have to say, I think it's going to work for them. Like, this movie is going
Barbie sales are going to go through the roof,
and
they'll reissue.
Yeah.
What was it? Emerald Fennell's one, the pregnant one. What was her name? Mitch or something?
Yeah, Mitch. Yeah.
And the pooping dog, guaranteed they're all on the shelves for Christmas.
True. Yeah, being kind of self-aware about it and stuff is absolutely Mattel's best move. They have to bring back Alan. I thought Michael Cera was fantastic.
He was the best thing in this film.
He's
almost unrecognizable. He's so round and shiny, but fuck, he was funny.
Do you really think he was the best thing in the film? Because I have to say, both Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling.
Oh, they were all good, but I didn't know Sarah was in it. And there's, I mean, I don't know if you've seen them, but for years there's been memes going around of, this is Alan, he's Ken's friend,
Yeah.
And the costuming, everything was perfect. It was exactly right. As soon as he came on, I went, oh, it's Alan.
Yeah.
And he was the only one.
Yeah, the costuming across the board was fantastic, but not only that, the production design. This movie has to win production design at the Oscars because that Barbie, what's it called? Barbieland. With
the recreation of the dream houses and all of those
insane.
Things. It's so well done.
It's incredibly well done. It's just brilliant design work. It's so stunning to look at.
And the way that when she journeys to the real world and they have her
the
going
different
through all the
vehicles,
but it's all
it's fully
toys.
Practical. Those shots, yeah.
And even the sort of opening little scene where she wakes up, goes through the motions, she does the breakfast and everything, and it's all the way you play with toys.
Yes, it's
you
brilliant.
Drink and you pour the thing, but nothing comes out. And when you move as I think Helen Mirren's voiceover says, when you
no one walks the Barbie
you pick
down
them
the
up
stairs.
and you put them down. So that's how she does it. So well done.
I just think it was incredibly smartly written and just it's so funny. I cannot tell you how many times I laughed when Ken is like, I'm going to play guitar at you. And all the Kens are sitting around the campfire playing fucking Push by Matchbox 20. And every time he does that
for like 6 hours.
It's just fucking hell. This movie was hysterical from start to finish, I thought.
Yeah, I was surprised. I obviously knew the main cast. I'd not just Robbie and Gosling, but I had read that America Ferrera and Ariana Greenblatt were in there, which made me happy because I knew
Kate McKinnon was in there, and I thought she was great as the weird Barbie because it's so true. Every kid has one of those.
Maybe the first time she hasn't annoyed the hell out of me. She was perfect for this role. The way she kept on doing the splits because some kid had bent her too many times and burnt her hair.
Yeah, it was great.
Oh, so funny.
Yeah, I was surprised by the pacing of the film. It's a fairly short film, and I do think it's sometimes the pacing actually moves a little bit too quick. I had seen a trailer for this one prior to seeing it. I don't watch trailers, but I had seen it at the cinemas, and so I knew that Barbie was going to the real world. And I thought that was going to be the movie, and it's really not. The real world sequence is maybe 15 minutes long. Yeah. It's really not long at all. And
it's purely there for her to get disillusioned and
for Ken to learn about the
patriarchy.
Which, man, the best line
I'd like a high-paying job, please.
The best line in the entire film was right at the end when they're kind of reconnecting and he's, once I learned that the patriarchy wasn't actually about horses, I lost interest. Just every time you see a random horse in the background just constantly playing on a loop on his screen in his Mojo Dojo Casa house, it's just so fucking good. So I was expecting more of it to take place in the real world, and so the actual story
I kind of thought
really
it was going to be like and I'll draw a parallel to another masterfully made modern fantasy, Masters of the Universe, where Dolph Lundgren finds himself in the real world with Courtney Cox. I thought it was going to be that. It was going to be the whole thing was going to be a fish out of water, and I'm glad it wasn't because I think it was a lot better.
Yes, I agree.
And delivered its messages a lot more succinctly the way it was structured.
Well, let's get to that because it does reach a point where its messages do become quite prominent
Yeah.
And I have heard some criticism of that from some reviewers. You know, some people don't mind it. Some people really hate. Where were you on it? Because I thought it was pitch perfect.
No issues. I mean, it's not subtle. I mean, but I don't think it's clunky. I think
I agree.
It's got something to say, and it
has something to say, and I think it's
the relevant to the subject matter. I mean,
it
tackles it very, very well.
Yeah.
I liked the about face when she gets to the real world and gets to, I can't remember the character's name, but Ariana Greenblatt's, you know, when she finally gets to her at the school.
Yeah.
Even though she's warned off by the nerdy girl's like, nah, she'll kill you. But the way they shoot her down and go, no, you don't inspire us. You held back feminism 50 years. And
it's so true. It's because Barbie is a really contradictory thing like that because, when you think of a Barbie, that is what you think of. You think of the stereotypical Barbie that's just all looks, but it's true. But like Barbie is a president, Barbie is a chef.
It's a double-edged sword. You know, it showed that women could be all these things, but it also, as they said, no one wants the fat Barbie.
Yes, it's funny
an
actually.
Unrealistic physical ideal. So which in the 40s and 50s wouldn't have been a thing.
Yeah,
but. Obviously, it is. It's no different than Cosmopolitan and all these magazines that constantly bombard women with you need makeup because you're ugly and you smell. You know.
Yeah. It was funny. You would have seen this. I believe it was in a podcast that we mutually loved, The Countdown. I think it was in their listener Facebook group that somebody shared a post from the ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, where they had done this graphic showing, you know, for Barbenheimer weekend, it was the number of Australians who have had the same occupation as both Barbie and Oppenheimer. And, you know, for physicists, it was maybe 10,000. Barbie had this graphic with like 15 occupations. You know, there were like 30,000 architects, 20,000. Like, it was very funny.
I tell you what, in a sort of a 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon-y sort of thing, with speaking of Baumbach and Gerwig, obviously we not too long ago saw Baumbach's most recent film, White Noise, with Adam Driver. And now the two of them have used Ariana Greenblatt. So the connective tissue between those two great films is, of course, the sci-fi masterpiece 65. It all comes back to 65. Greenblatt and Driver in the Gerwig-Baumbach conflux.
So all these films are canon together is what you're saying?
They are. They're all canon together and they all come back to 65.
Yeah.
Shout out to Rodrigo Prieto, cinematography.
Oh,
wow.
This is a brilliant looking film.
I mean, I would have never suspected, knowing that there was a Barbie movie being made, that the first port of call, well, we need Scorsese's DP.
Yeah. But I think this just shows that from the beginning, this was more than just an IP.
It was taken
cash
seriously.
Grab. Exactly. This is not the Battleship movie or, you know, this was taken very seriously from the start.
We've had 2 G.I. Joe films before we got to it's sister property Barbie, but I think it's been worth the wait.
Yeah, every single piece of art that has gone into this film, and it is art, I think, the screenplay, the like we said, the production design, the cinematography, I think the acting and casting is incredible.
I tell you what, I will not be surprised if Margot Robbie gets an actress nom.
I'd love that.
I don't think she'll win.
Yeah.
But I think the film itself is quite rightly being taken seriously enough that it will be in the running for things.
Yeah.
Maybe even screenplay.
And she honestly is brilliant in this film. Like, I actually think, we need to talk about her because we haven't really yet.
Her and Gosling both.
Fantastic.
He's a revelation in almost everything he does.
True. Yeah.
I'm always impressed when you've got someone, and Brad Pitt's another one, that is just ridiculously good looking.
Yeah, that they also have this kind of range to be able to be this funny.
No problem.
Yeah.
Just taking the piss out of themselves completely. There's no ego in it.
The sequence where where you first kind of meet Ken, he's like, a lot of people think that surfing's not even my job. My job is just beach.
Yeah. I'll beat you off.
Yeah.
I'll beat you all off.
But I had no idea that Margot could be this funny. The sequence when she's really, really starting her existential crisis, when they get back and they discover, Ken's Mojo Dojo Castle House, and she just lies down on the ground completely
She
flat.
lies down like a plastic doll.
I know, yeah. Even the way that she's walking from the beginning of the movie, she walks the way a Barbie walks. Like, this is not just casting because of her looks or anything. She has taken this role seriously, and she is hysterical and moving. Like, I almost cried at the end, I have to say.
I was going to say, because I know you cry at the drop of a hat. I've heard so many people, even I saw friends of mine, my mates whose daughter Alana I made the book for.
Yeah.
We caught up for a barbecue on the weekend, a Barbie. And I mentioned that I was seeing this, and their younger daughter had seen it. And I said to her mum, Kylie, I said, it's supposed to be really good. I'm looking forward to it. And she said, I might go and see it. And the daughter Elise said, oh, you'll cry. And so I was going in expecting to, and I not only did I not cry, I'm not even sure where people cried in it.
I think
where did you find it?
For me, it's a real character piece, this film. This is absolutely, it's almost a coming-of-age film in many ways. It's about kind of discovering who you are and what your purpose is. And just that final, not final scene, actually the final line of the film is very funny too.
The only part where I almost cried was with laughter. And that's when they first get to the real world and they're getting wolf whistled by the construction workers, and she walks up and goes, I don't have a vagina, and he doesn't have a penis. And as she walks off, Ken goes, I have all the genitals.
But the sequence when, she's talking to Ruth Handler at the end of the film, and she's, kind of making the decision to become a real person. I don't know. It was touching to me.
It was, but it got me. Yeah.
Like, I think that's the Oscar clip. I think that's the sequence that you play at the Oscars if she does get
not the slow mo beach fight that's quite frankly up there with Dunkirk.
That was great. That was really good. Can we talk about the soundtrack for a minute? Which
Sure.
I oft do. I really enjoyed the soundtrack for this film. I absolutely hate Billie Eilish. I've never liked anything she's done before. She deserves Best Original Song for this film. That sequence and the use of that piece in that sequence was phenomenal, I think.
I must have been like, I know Mark Ronson was involved in the soundtrack, so I'm sure it was good. Maybe I was just laughing too hard or just looking at all the visuals. I didn't note the score much at all. Right.
Really? And I find it very prominent. Like the opening sequence with the track written by Lizzo, which then plays again later, kind of parodying itself as everything's going wrong for Barbie. Obviously, Matchbox 20 comes.
Well, that's the only bit I noticed. But
I'm a big Indigo Girls fan. Actually, I have to say, "Closer to Fine" is one of my favorite songs, and I thought the use of that was really great.
Maybe it's because I didn't know the song, so it didn't sort of. Apart from the Matchbox 20, it didn't really strike a chord because none of them were familiar to me.
Yeah, right. Yep. All right, so all in all, how are you scoring Barbie?
Tell you what, just because it's just popped into my head, I know it got done to death in the trailers, but just conceptually, the feet thing is genius.
Her stepping out of those heels.
Out and having the Barbie foot and then having her heel touching the ground as one of the existential crisis moments, and they're all looking at it and vomiting. And
yeah.
God, that was funny. Yeah. I think I'm probably an 8.
Yep. Fair.
It's very strong.
I'm a 9, and honestly, for me, it's kind of between a 9 and a 10, not an 8 and a 9 for me. I loved this film that much. I do think that the Mattel stuff does bring it down just that peg. Because I don't need Will Ferrell there. But I thought that so much of this film was so strong. I adored it.
All of the cast. And I mean, we touched on Gosling and Robbie, but what's his name? Shang-Chi and Doctor Who.
Yes, of course.
Kens.
Sulimu was absolutely hysterical as the kind of other Ken.
And Doctor Who. We got Doctor Who in there as well.
Yeah, yep.
So good.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a who's who of actresses.
Yes. Yeah.
I couldn't believe Emerald Fennell was in there. Wow. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Amazing.
Big recommend from us.
Big recommend.
All right.
Very, very clever.
Well, shall we get over to the second film?
About death? All right. Speaking of, have you ever thought about death? Death, destroyer of worlds.
Yes, I am become death. Oppenheimer is a 2023 biographical thriller film written and directed by Christopher Nolan, based on the 2005 biography American Prometheus. The film chronicles, of course, the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, and it stars Cillian Murphy, Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, and Kenneth Branagh.
And about 1,000. This cast is fucking ridiculous.
I'm not going to bother asking you what this one's about because it's about Oppenheimer. Says it on the tin.
Yeah. Although it's kind of two films in one, really.
It is because
it's about Oppenheimer
and Strauss
and the project. And it's also about, the campaign to take him down a peg and discredit him.
Yeah. Before we get into the film proper, will you allow me to soapbox for a quick moment?
Oh, God. I would want nothing more.
Okay.
And I would have been disappointed if you didn't.
Now, I would like you to take a stab at what you think the topic of my soapbox is going to be, because I bet you can guess.
I don't care what it is. I want you to talk to me about Christopher Nolan.
I will talk to you about Nolan. The topic is visual effects, and I want to preface this, usually I try hold my cards a little bit. I want to preface this because I don't want you adding me, everybody. I fucking loved this film. This is, for my money, probably Nolan's best film ever. Certainly his best since Interstellar. I thought that this was a phenomenal film and I loved it. But there is something very dear to my heart that I need to talk about before we get into it proper. Because Nolan, in particular, has created a lot of discourse around the use of CGI and whether or not he uses CGI in his films and all of this, right? Last week when we did Mission Impossible, I kind of soapboxed a little bit there because I do feel that is another franchise that has tried to downplay the amount of visual effects. But to give credit where credit's due, Christopher McQuarrie just last week was outright asked how many visual effects shots are in Dead Reckoning, and he came out and said about 2,500. So good on him for being upfront about that when I feel like the producers of the film are very much trying to downplay it. Like I said last week, the stunts might be practical. Most of the film is not. This is another case where Nolan was outright asked how much CGI is in this film, and he said 0. And
did he clone a younger version of Cillian Murphy? Is that how he got around using CGI?
He said 0. And not only did he say 0, the credits for this film list 15 visual effects artists. Everybody knew up front that he was working with DNEG on this film, who are a massive visual effects house. So I don't know why he said 0, but they credit 15 artists, which is less than 80% of the artists who actually worked on the film. Which to me is a travesty because
give people credit for the fucking work they've done.
Exactly. You can go to the DNEG website right now, and I will actually put a link to that in the show notes, and you can see the full list of names of the artists who worked on this film, and it's nearly 200. But there are only 15 credited in the film, and I do believe that is part of this play to downplay how much visual effects are in the film. Now, I think
People aren't stupid. Even lay folk like myself who don't work in the industry, just watching this film, you can see countless shots.
Well, here's the thing. Look, no one is really clear on what Nolan exactly meant and whether maybe he was using some sneaky wording when he said 0 CGI. Some people are theorizing that what he meant is that there are no full CGI shots. There's no shot here that is completely created by a computer. Everything starts with a practical base and then is enhanced.
The entire first 20 minutes where you're jerking back and forth to what are obviously computer-generated shots of...
Well, the final shot of the film, which is, the missiles kind of and Earth kind of being engulfed in fire. Sure, maybe there was a practical base there. Maybe you start with a photo.
Does he have a camera that can actually go down to, subatomic levels to get those shots? Probably not.
Yeah. And look, I'm sure that there's obviously a lot of practical trickery in the film, and I don't want to downplay the practical work that's done in the film. It's fantastic. I'm just saying credit where credit's due. Please credit the artists who worked on the film. So I just want to say that up front. There's obvious visual effects in the film. Whether or not there's CGI, I don't know. But at the very least, There were hundreds of
There is no way
artists, comp
nothing in
artists
this
who
film was
painted
computer
things
generated.
out.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I just wanted to soapbox that for a little bit at the start, but I did want to preface it with, I loved this film. I think this is a brilliant film. Whether or not there's CGI doesn't change whether I think this is a good film or not. I just want people to be credited for the great work that they've done.
Too right.
So now that I've said that, let's get into it. What did you think of Oppenheimer?
I enjoyed it. I was very nervous for the first 20 minutes because I think it's a bit slow to start. I do think it's too long.
Yeah, right. Yep.
I think the non-linear storytelling, which he seems addicted to now, I don't think he's ever going to go back to standard linear storytelling. He doesn't seem to be able to do that these days.
Yeah.
I think it worked to a point when you're trying to tell two stories, but I think the second half is very strong and I loved it. I think the first half is a bit disjointed.
That's interesting because I feel the opposite. I actually feel like this. I do agree it's too long. For me, it's too long in the back end, though. For me, it's once the bomb has dropped, and I don't mean even the Trinity test. I mean once they have bombed Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yep.
I feel from that point it drags a little bit in the tooth because from that point on we are really just cutting between the two hearings and.
See, I thought the hearings were the best part. I was far more interested in that. I don't think he did a good job of telling the story of Trinity and overcoming the race against the Nazis and the race against. I don't think that was. I think that sort of story has been done far better in things like Enigma and The Imitation Game and other films where you're similarly, not coming up with a bomb, but you're cracking a code. But it's the same thing. You're in a race.
The race again,
and it's the team of geniuses and coming iteratively approaching the problem and that sort of thing. I think those films and others have done it much better. Yeah. I think he shortchanged that because he wanted to tell both parts of the story.
That's interesting. To me, I almost feel like he's taken a completely different approach, and this film, to me, isn't really about that race. To me, this is about a man who is almost playing God. To me, it's that classic line from Jurassic Park, just because you can doesn't mean you should. To me, that's what this film is
I agree,
about.
but I don't. I think that's what it should have been. I think you could have done away with a lot of flab in the first half and gotten to really the how he deals with being discredited, how he deals with the desire to be the best and be the most famous guy in the world and crack these, fundamental, scientific conundrum.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the further he goes and the closer he gets to cracking it and being the first and winning, the more he starts to see what will come after that and starts having moral qualms and getting to that quandary. That was all fascinating, and I think we just needed to get, in the words of Tripod, get to the fucking monkey.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, so I actually wasn't expecting to enjoy this film much at all. I've liked some of Nolan's work in the past. Like, he's been
it's
kind
a
of
while
50-50
since he's done a 5-star banger for me.
And
I think Inception's probably the last one.
Yeah, right. I think for me, he typically in the past hasn't shown, I think, the emotional side necessary for a biopic.
His films are cold.
Yes, they are tactical, and that's fine. But I didn't think that would work for a biopic, which is essentially what this is. And it really surprised me because I think he has done a very good job of showing us a fairly round. I really liked the storytelling technique of showing us both from Oppenheimer's perspective, as well as to a much lesser degree, his non-perspective, the kind of third person as shown in the black and white portions when it's not directly from his point of view. And I think it's very interesting, particularly in the first half, when you see the differences in him, when it's from his point of view, he comes across as much more meek and introspective And then when you see what other people thought of him, and he's very arrogant, and, you know, like the first time he meets Robert Downey Jr., and that scene is in black and white from Robert Downey Jr.'s perspective, Oppenheimer seems like a total dick. So I think that's a really interesting storytelling technique. And I don't know if it's just that Cillian Murphy is so great.
He is, everyone is incredible in this, but he's really, really good. I think
he's in virtually every scene.
I think he almost saves what I think is one of the failings in the writing, is because I don't think the writing, and it is difficult when you're dealing with a real person, particularly a real person that the world doesn't really know that well.
Yes,
they know
that's true. We
their
know
deeds
the
and accomplishments,
yeah.
but at a personal level. So they're limited by the book that they're basing this on. But as an example, very early on, we see him taken down a peg by his lecturer. He's not allowed to go and see the Niels Bohr lecture.
Yes.
So
he poisons the apple.
He injects the teacher's apple with cyanide.
Yeah.
And doesn't seem to have any qualms about that. The only time he only sort of goes, "Oh my God,"
when someone
Niels
he
Bohr's
respects
about
is
to
going,
eat it.
yeah.
So we're sort of presented with this guy who's a borderline psychopath.
Yeah.
Without any real rationale as to why would he do that?
I do agree. That was the
and
one
that's
sequence
never
that
addressed.
for me was very off.
He never shows that inclination again for the rest of the film. So, like, why is that there? What is it meant to tell us about him as a person?
Yeah.
Other than that he's a bit of a psycho who might just fucking kill folk for very little reason.
Yeah.
And there were a few of those where I don't think his character was written that well. And I think Cillian saves it because he is so fucking amazing.
Yeah.
That he carries you through rather than a lot of the writing, I think.
I think that's totally fair. That's absolutely true. Like you said, I don't think there's a bad performance in this film. I think Florence Pugh is fantastic. She's actually surprisingly not in that much of the film. Like, it had been so hyped up, I thought she was going to be a much
she makes a hell of an impact.
I mean, had you heard these rumors that it was a 15-minute long scene?
No, I didn't even know she was in. I didn't even know she was in this.
Oh, right. People were talking about a 15-minute long full frontal nudity scene between the two.
I've heard that about the J-Law film, but I hadn't heard. I didn't even know Florence Pugh was in this. Yeah, so right. I mean, that was a pleasant surprise. I mean, in more ways than one. But no, she is amazing. She's getting a nomination.
Fantastic.
This is the year Robert Downey Jr. wins an Academy Award
and deserves it. I absolutely loved him in this film.
I didn't even recognize him. He looked like Alan Arkin.
Yeah. He truly surprised me. This is absolutely his best performance. He was great.
Yeah.
You know who else really surprised me? David Krumholtz. I didn't know he was going to be in this film.
Oh, there are the cast. I mean, I said it before. The cast list on this is possibly the most bonkers cast list I've ever seen. Yeah. How this movie has a budget of $100 million is beyond me because the cast is just enormous.
Yeah. Matt Damon was fantastic.
Damon's great. Hartnett. Fucking so good to have him back in a big movie. He was great. Casey Affleck was fantastic.
In the few... Was he only in one scene?
Two. You've got him, a young him and an old him, but they're kind of interspersed in the same little segment. So, Tom Conti as Einstein.
Oh, he was fantastic. Absolutely.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Emily Blunt was brilliant.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I will be very astonished if Cillian Murphy, Florence Pugh, and Downey Jr. aren't all nominated. And I think Downey Jr. is a shoo-in to win. I can't think of it. We will need to have a fucking Citizen Kane come out for him not to win.
True. At this stage, I would see both Cillian and Robert Downey as a lock. At this stage, we're very early in the year, but
yeah. So even Rami Malek wasn't shit, and that I know he.
Well, actually, I was going to say,
but
for most of the movie, I was like, oh wow, this might be his best role yet because he just doesn't talk. He didn't talk until like his final scene.
He drops a clipboard. That's his big moment, and then he when he does speak, it's short and he's good.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
Hoyt van Hoytma.
I was just going to...
Killing it again?
Yeah, let's get to that. I had my little soapbox moment at the start, but let's actually talk about the look of the film, because it is stunning. Like I said, I couldn't give a shit whether there's VFX or not. I just want people to be upfront and honest about it and not downplay it anymore like it's some awful, awful thing when it is there.
We'll ignore the CG de-aging and we'll just say that the makeup to make people look older was very, very good.
Yeah. But the look of this film, I think, is fantastic for the most part. I have seen some discourse online about the Trinity test itself. I've seen a lot of people say that for them, that explosion lacks the scale of a...
I loved the fact that it was silent and then you had the sound
that saved anything. I was so blown away by just the editing of that sequence. I think the editing throughout the entire film is fantastic. I'd have this film up for best editing in a heartbeat. Yep. I thought it was so well put together that, unlike those, I thought the explosion looked pretty phenomenal.
I thought that bit was great. I got a little bit tired of Oppenheimer tuning out and starting to hear and see...
Oh, the clapping?
The clapping.
That did get on my... Yeah.
Initially, I thought, this is quite a cool touch, but it got done and done, 4, 5, 6 times they returned to it, and I was like, I'm a bit sick of it by now.
Yeah.
Other than that, I thought the beginning a little slow, and I wanted more of either the scientists, Hartnett and Cillian Murphy and that cracking and fucking Benny Safdie, we didn't even mention him, he was great.
Yeah.
Working to overcome, I wanted either that or I wanted more courtroom drama.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Because I loved both of those, and it was just a whole lot of kind of flab in between. That I didn't need, but everyone else so fucking good.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you who else I didn't recognize, along with Downey Jr. Fucking Gary Oldman.
Oldman's in this?
Harry Truman. He's president.
Oh shit! I didn't recognize him either.
He's even more than when he was Churchill. It was only the voice that gave it away, and I started going, Is it? Is it? I think it is. And then I checked the credits and went, it is.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. I thought those sequences were great as well. The fucking moment where they're deciding what cities to bomb, and it plays like a group of people deciding where to go for lunch. Like,
it was literally, we won't go there. We won't bomb this one because I went there on my honeymoon and it's very pretty.
Yeah.
Way to save hundreds of thousands of lives, basically flipping a coin.
I've seen a lot of people giving this movie negative reviews on the basis that it doesn't show any of the Japanese side effectively. We don't see those horrific atrocities. To me, that makes it more powerful, I have to say. I think that what we do see, like I said, that sequence of them deciding where, and the fact that he's done all this in remote Texas, so far away from where these bombs are going to be dropped.
Well, the fact is,
we don't see them because
none of these people in this film saw.
Exactly.
And I think it does a good job of showing, because when you go from the really rather revolting scene of the Trinity guys celebrating,
yes,
and Oppenheimer sort of almost sick to his stomach, but performing, saying, if only we had it in time for the Nazis, and tell you who didn't like it, the Japanese, and then seeing this sea of American flags and cheering and laughing. Terrific. But then when he gets outside and there are people vomiting and sitting on the ground and weeping, and that contrast between the sort of rah-rah, almost Nazi nationalism inside, cheering at, hundreds of thousands of civilians being killed, and then seeing the people who actually understand the ramifications of what they've done.
Well, that's the thing. I think for me, that's where the film really works, and what it does really well is the way that it portrays that side of it. Like, he's a scientist, and he's not even an engineer. He's a theoretical guy. Like,
he's shit in the lab.
Yeah, exactly. His job is to, to him, he's just doing science, and I don't think that the ramification of it really hits him.
No.
Even during the Trinity test, I think it's an odd one, and this is where I don't I can kind of understand people complaining about the scale of that explosion and stuff. It does seem like they're actually quite close to that explosion. Like, they're close enough to feel the aftershock, and yet they're fine. So you can almost understand him not fully understanding its impact, even after seeing it.
I mean, for me, I got the sense of how far away they were because it takes seconds for the sound to hit them.
Yeah, it takes a long time, yeah.
Which to me, I mean, I know that was just a stylistic choice to, you know, for dramatic effect, but to me that also gave a sense of, you know, they think it's all over and then it hits, the sound hits them because it is that far away.
Yeah.
For me, that really, really worked.
Yeah, okay, yeah. But even like the sequence when he's trying to recruit people and he's dressed as a soldier to start with, and they're like, You're not a soldier, why are you wearing that? You know, he's kind of like, he's almost like you said, playing a part almost, you know, like he's so bogged down in the theory of it. No, can we actually do this? Like, can we put this thing together? That he's really not thinking about that impact it's really going to have on actual people. Yeah. So, yeah.
It sounds like we're both kind of feeling like Nolan's not back to his former glory. Well, I mean, for you, this is his best film.
I think so, yeah. For me, this is definitely the most I've enjoyed. And I've liked a lot of his other films. Like, don't get me wrong, I like Memento. I love Batman Begins. I love Interstellar. I think a lot of his other films that some other people love, I don't think are as good for me. But I think that this is absolutely his best work. And I would love to see him do more down this kind of path, because I think he's very much over the past few years for me bogged himself down in concepts. A little bit like Oppenheimer himself. He's really just been so bogged down in, this idea, rather than thinking about the actual, like I said before, the emotion behind it, which for me is such a huge part of storytelling that's just been completely missing from his filmography for
certainly
quite a few years.
The most emotion and actual humanity that he's had in a film in many years. And credit to the cast as well. But
and for me, almost the first time I feel like he's really had something to say. Like, this film actually, I think, is saying something, and I don't think most of his other films have. I think they've purely been mostly entertainment, but I think he's really saying something here about humanity and the politics of nuclear weapons. Like, they're scary shit, and I think that's what he's trying to show us here.
Yeah, I do think one of the best moments in the film is when you actually, all the way through, part of the driving force behind Strauss's vendetta is that he thinks he poisoned Einstein, and
when you see that
by default,
but
the reveal of them actually talking about it and hearing what they had to say, I think that was one of the best moments in the film for me.
100%. That moment, and I don't know whether that's something Oppenheimer truly said or not, but about the fear that we have actually created a chain reaction that will destroy the world. Like, yeah, you kind of have, and seeing that his original hopes really, like, yes, he was 100% complicit in what happened. But the way the film portrays it, at least, is that his hopes are that by doing this, nobody else will. Like, by being the first ones to develop this bomb and by dropping it, hopefully that will end it. But it absolutely doesn't, and that's the scary part of it. I think, especially when he realizes that we've opened the doors now. Like, now that we've done this, other countries are going to do it. The genie is literally
out of the bottle.
Yeah. So I was a big fan. How are you scoring Oppenheimer?
I think I'm an 8.5.
Yep.
It's I don't think it's as good as Inception or Memento, or probably even Interstellar. As I said, I think there are some flaws, but I think the cast are all phenomenal.
Yeah.
And by and large, the scenes that work really well. I'm still very much in kind of as people are with the Stones and the Beatles. I've always kind of felt people are either Nolan or Fincher. I'm still very much Cam Fincher. I think he is the better filmmaker. And for a smartest guy in the room film, I will watch Social Network over this any day. But this was very good.
Yeah, I agree. I think Social Network is a better biopic, but I think for me, this is probably second best as far as biopics go. I love this film. I'm a 9 out of 10. Same thing as, I'm probably between an 8 and a 9. I don't think it is a 10 for me. Maybe on a rewatch, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm a 9 at this stage.
Yep.
Alrighty. What are we getting to next week, mate?
We've got to get back to required viewing. Yep. We're overdue.
I need you to remind me what shows I have to watch.
Can I swap with you? I want to watch Evil again.
All right, well, that's what we're getting to next week. We're going to be mini reviewing 5 different TV series each that we've given each other. If you haven't listened to the first part of that, go back to our previous required viewing episode, and
you might have to go back a couple of months.
These hidden gems. I think that's going to be fun. That'll be good. Yeah,
and we might sneak in a sneaky review for Meg too, because there's no way I'm missing that on the big screen. And you know what we've got coming up soon? And I haven't looked at the release date. What is now called Dracula Voyage of the Demeter, rather than the last Voyage of the Demeter.
That's coming in August as well.
Which I'm super excited. I'm a huge fan of Uwe Dahl. Have you seen his previous films? I
don't think so.
Troll Hunter.
I've heard Troll Hunter is exceptional. I haven't seen it.
Autopsy of Jane Doe, which is one of my favourite horror films of probably the last 20 years.
Yep.
A cracking little film called Mortal, which no one saw for some reason, which is a very interesting take on the Thor.
Nice.
That's got one of the Wolf boys, Alex on that. One of the wolves, and then a whole bunch of Norwegian people, and it's just stunningly shot in Norway. I love his films. He's got such a great style.
Nice.
So I've been looking forward to that ever since. And then I got force fed a trailer, and it looks fucking awesome.
Nice.
I normally resent force-fed trailers when you're sitting down and they just throw them at you in the cinema, but this looked so good I kind of forgave it.
Well, that's going to be good.
Yeah.
In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedthing.com or wewatchedthing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedthing. If you want to help support the show and also listen to our new bonus series going through perfect albums, we're recording 2 episodes tonight.
God, I'm enjoying that.
Get into some alt country and musical version of War of the Worlds this week. So that's fun. You can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedthing, and we'll catch you next week.
Go watch some Barbenheimer.